Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Matt Johnson. We are back with another episode of Real Estate Uncensored. We have an amazing guest with us. We're going to be talking about scaling up your business and a whole bunch of other stuff, so we've got a lot of content to get into. This is the first time, actually, that Greg is joining us from the road. The road, Greg. What is up today?
I don't know, man. I got on a big old airplane and I flew somewhere different. I'm down here in Austin, Texas, where it is incredibly. When they say keep Austin weird, they truly mean keep Austin fucking weird. Because, dude, we were down on the street last night. There is so much good-looking women meat out down here. It is unbelievable. It just being a single guy. Come on, man. You need two heads, just looking both directions at all times to take in the entire view. It's absolutely unbelievable. And then check this out. Thanks to California being so liberal and kind of a pain in the ass, you can't own like a gun with a silencer. You can't own like fully automatics and the rest of this stuff. So we're gonna go rent some fucking weapons today for $10 or something. I'm gonna go shoot some AKs, some bazookas. I don't know fucking what I'm gonna shoot, but it's gonna be freaking awesome. I cannot wait. Today's gonna be amazing. After this hangout, by the way.
After the hangout. All right, good. Well, you're going to stay with us for the entire hangout and then go fire some weapons.
I'm not going to fire weapons during the hangout.
Okay. Well, that's probably true. All right. Well, let's talk to the person that's actually going to fire some real weapons during some content weapons during the hangout. Lars Hedenborg. Lars, what's up today?
Not too much, guys. I'm out of the world of anything crazy. I'm married with 2 kids for 10 years, so I don't even know what you guys are talking about right now.
We're speaking Spanish and walking backwards, huh?
I'm just living the dream here with my awesome family in Charlotte, North Carolina, just selling houses and coaching agents.
That's right. That's awesome, man. Like we were talking about off air, North Carolina is a beautiful part of the country, man. I fell in love with it when I went down there. I went to what's your capital? Raleigh.
Raleigh, yeah.
Yeah, I went to Raleigh. Just gorgeous territory. Gorgeous.
Yeah,
great people too.
Yeah, growing like a weed too, right?
Yep,
Charlotte.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, North Carolina, South Carolina. I actually live in South Carolina, but we border Charlotte. My office is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Gotcha. Oh, very cool.
Very cool.
Well, while we wait for people to join us live, obviously we're recording this, and most of the publicity and all that stuff takes place on the back end. But there'll be a few people that join us on the video version here. So if you're doing that, awesome. We thank you so much for doing that. But if you're watching the replay here on YouTube, more likely go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube. And then if you prefer the audio version, just nestled right between your ears, where we so belong.
Nestled.
That's right, nestled. Head on over to iTunes and Stitcher and subscribe there. And big news, Greg. So we hit Curator's list of the top real estate podcasts the other day. That was awesome.
I know. We hit number 17 out of 35 or 37 or whatever the number is. We are so blessed and honored that you guys are watching us, listening to us, consuming our content, letting me be vulgar, and you guys still like us. And Matt, desperately tries to corral me, but yet fails epically.
And I'm a certified Greg Wrangler. I don't know how the amateurs do it. I mean, I'm a professional at this.
I mean, you actually went to class for this. I mean, you have a degree.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right. So rather than pulling a question from the Facebook group like we normally would to get the juices flowing, I actually have a kind of just a miscellaneous question we'll let Lars jump in on just to get the juices flowing before we get into the real meat of what we're going to cover today. So, Lars, there was something on your blog that caught my eye, and you've spoken about it kind of live in one of your in-person kind of workshops, and so I want you to go into this a little bit. So, if you don't mind, what are referral cards, and how do you teach agents to use them?
Yeah, I mean, what I've found, even in our own business, some of the lowest hanging fruit is often forgotten. Anyone that's attracted to real estate typically has a very much a shiny object syndrome, squirrel chasing. Everything has to be new and fresh, but we just forget to kind of do the ordinary. So I just kind of created these trifold, three per page referral cards, and they're all over my office. Everyone has on their desk a trifold brochure holder with just stacks of these referral cards, and just 4 times in the process with buyers and sellers, we ask for referrals. So it's when we convince them to do business with us, when we go under contract, when we close, and 30 days after. And right now, about 35% of our business is from folks that knew, liked, and trusted us. Either referrals from clients or people that have done business with us. And we'll do over 500 transactions this year, so 35% of that's pretty strong business just from referrals.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very cool. So, Greg, is there anything you guys do systematically to generate referrals?
Matt, you shouldn't cuss at me on podcasts. You're saying systems. That's not fair. No, what we do though is that we do ask religiously, and Lars, I learned from you. I definitely adhere to what you're saying. I'm trying to put what you're talking about into action. We ask for a referral at the time of the height of their happiness, and we recently started doing that. We don't do it 4 times. We should, and I definitely will start doing that. But we do ask them right when we get the contract accepted, either buy or sell side, and it has been very successful with us so far. So that's what we're doing right now. But we're always trying to get better.
Yeah, and they usually are happy when they say yes to do business with it because you haven't messed up yet. So definitely at least do it twice when they say yes to be a client of yours, and then when you get them under contract, regardless of how bumpy that process may have been in between. At least there's 2 times where you could ask for sure.
It's kind of like dating. When you first meet them, they think you're wonderful,
yeah,
and then when you get down on one knee, they think you're wonderful. It was kind of gray area after that.
Yeah, after and in
Greg,
between.
What I hear you saying is that the first time that you want to ask for a referral to your future girlfriend is when you just start dating your current girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to get that. Let's make sure I'm make sure that gets in the show notes. Okay.
Yeah. Who else do you know that would want to date me?
That's right.
Exactly. If this doesn't work out, do you have maybe 3 referrals you can give me? Blonde, redhead, and brunette.
I want to see that combined with the carousel script, Greg, where you go, okay, what about that one? And what about that one? And what about that one?
This one.
All right, well, we digress. So,
Yes.
so for anybody, Lars, just catch us up. Give us like the, I don't know, the 60-second bio of kind of how you got to where you are now and what you're doing now, just in case there's anybody that's been living under a rock and doesn't know who you are.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I chose to leave a corporate job at the exact worst time, mid-2007. Looking back, it's exactly when inventory just spiked through the roof, and it was pre-end of the financial world, which was 2008. So really, for the first 3-4 years, I didn't have any sales experience coming into the industry. Never really built a business at all. I had a good business background, and I sort of knew what it took to run a business, but I didn't really have the real estate skills. And my team is in Charlotte, North Carolina. I just grounded out those first few years. Focused. It was obviously a buyer's market, so I focused on buyers. Mostly internet buyers the first handful of years, and kindly, I had just been married a couple years before getting to real estate. We had a child at that time, and so I knew I had to get out of buyers, so that's where the leverage came in. Hired my first assistant actually in 2008, and then my first buyer agent ended 2009, and then just kind of continue to build out systems and scale the business, add admin staff, more buyer agents, replace myself on the listing side. Last year we did 453 sides. I've been out of production for I guess about 3-4 years now, and I've leveraged the team to the point where I really just do the visionary work, and it is truly a 1-day-a-week job. I go in on Tuesdays. It's a 9 to 5 on Tuesday. It's a busy day, but it's definitely a 1-day-a-week kind of thing at this point.
Lars, what kind of time frame did it take you to do that? A lot of agents, they work 10 days a week, and they just can never find themselves or find time for their family. How did you make that transition, and what was that catalyst?
Yeah, it was. I just knew. It's funny, when I first got into real estate, a lot of people. So I left a pretty cozy, multi-6-figure corporate job to get into real estate. And my first year in real estate, I netted $37,000 on like 186 of GCI. So I was trying everything, spending all my money. I went from, I guess, 27 first, 27, 44, 58, 118, 178 to 48, 320, 453. So I just knew anything that somebody else could do almost as good as me, I just continually shed that. So it was just a continuous elevate, delegate kind of thing. Just knowing that there's so many low-value tasks that go on in real estate, even showing homes and working with buyers. In our market, that's a $25 to $40 an hour position. Listing agents are, anywhere from $60 to $75 an hour, and I knew I wanted to make $500 an hour, and so I just constantly sort of built a system that a lower-level wage could run, and just always did that, and just really, just with a vengeance, with just an impatience, I would just get pissed off when I was touching something that I knew somebody could do better, or just as good as I could, or even not as good as I could, but just for a lower dollar value, and just knew that I had to build out the company functionally. So a lot of real estate agents don't realize that they have to have marketing, sales, operations, and finance. And if you're lacking for sales, in any market, in a buyer's market or a seller's market, it's because your marketing's not strong. If you're getting leads and you're not closing them, it's because your sales function's weak, regardless of if you have a team or not. So just taking that approach, that's from my background I worked for acquisitions and strategy for an aerospace company. So just ripping apart companies and kind of looking at them functionally and their strengths and weaknesses and integrating them with our company at the time. And so just taking that business approach and just knowing that leverage sustainable systems, empowered people, and ultimately just to achieve the time and money freedom that I was looking for.
See, that's what is lacking sorely in this industry is your mindset. A lot of people get into it. Oh, look, I like houses; they're pretty. I love the kitchen. Oh, I like helping people. Well, bullshit. This is a freaking business. I mean, you got to think of it as a business, and what you're doing, the systems you're teaching, the coaching you're doing, is invaluable to our industry because you're going to make every other day better.
And the cool thing is, the industry's broken for sure, but I almost don't want it to get fixed, right? Because if everyone was like me, it would make, or if everyone took a business approach and they brought a specialist model to bear for their clients, it'd be, we wouldn't have much of a competitive advantage. So I kind of like the fact that it costs like $350 to become an agent in my market, because those are the agents that it's easy for us to compete against. The challenge is that they'll pull down 3, 4, 5 deals a year. 4,000 of them, and that's a lot of transactions that the true professionals should be getting.
Those biscuits.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right.
How dare they do that?
Yeah, exactly. Let's dig into the buyer side a little bit. So Lars, when you were working with buyers, tell me about a couple, maybe 1 to 2 key skill sets that you didn't have coming into real estate that you kind of had to build while you were in real estate.
Yeah, it's funny because I still pop into our sales meetings to this day, and I harp on my agents about scripts. When I first got into real estate, I thought the concept of a script having some sort of idea of what you wanted to say to somebody, I thought it was too mechanical and it wouldn't come off as genuine. But just knowing your scripts, I mean, I spent a full year just role-playing scripts and just learning buyer-side scripts. I didn't even worry about listing homes because the market sucked anyway. It was hard to sell homes, but just making an offer to a buyer that they couldn't refuse. And it's become, I think it has become a little bit more difficult now because there's so many, more websites are more real-time and there's more data available. But at the time, it was just make such an attractive offer to buyers on the phone that they couldn't refuse meeting with me. And then when they met with me, I would meet them. I wouldn't show them homes. I would meet them and present my services and get them to sign first. And that and time blocking, and discipline and really holding yourself accountable. I didn't like prospecting. I mean, it was the worst thing in the world, but I knew nobody was going to call me, so I knew how to generate leads with just direct response. I studied a lot of Dan Kennedy stuff in the beginning where it was easy to, at the time, to make some pretty attractive offers for buyers because there was so much distressed properties and, off-market properties, builder closeouts. I mean, it was really easy to kind of get people to give me their contact information because I had something of value. And then just time blocking. I think it was 12 to 15 hours a week I was time blocking and just picking up the phone and making calls.
Yeah, you did what you had to do. You had to grind it out. Nothing came easy to you. I talk to a lot of agents, like you talk to a lot of agents, and Matt does too. They just well, I want to get business. How do I do it? I'm like, you got to freaking grind it out, dumbass.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not gonna. No matter how hard you stare at your phone, it's not gonna ring. Okay. Yeah. And there's a magical buyer on the other end. Yeah. So I mean, just to quickly digress a little bit. What was your mindset? Because a lot of people don't understand mindset that much. What was that trigger moment for you? What made you do that? I mean, what was that catalyst behind you?
It was a few things. I mean, it was leaving. I mean, everyone knew I left a really awesome corporate job. So the pressure was on to not fail. I think that was just part of it. I've always been naturally just kind of driven, but I was in it. I had left on great terms. I left a company that I could have done anything in that company. So that was part of it, just the pressure of having made that decision. The other part was, being newly married with less than 1-year-old. I really wanted to sort of build this thing for them. And And I would say that that's probably the two biggest things, just not wanting to fail because of this big decision I made. And I remember telling myself, the cool thing about, I left an aerospace company, which is very traditional, old school. If you're there for 30 years, you'll likely be in a senior position and make some good money. And I didn't want that for myself. But I remember thinking every day, like nobody, like you can't tell me I can't sell a home today, even though the market sucks, and our, our sales are probably 40% of what they are today back then, and there just wasn't that much selling going on. But I remember just telling myself, you can't tell me I can't sell a home today. And that's when I got into some of the Tony Robbins stuff. I think 2009 is when I first went to UPW and just sort of introduced to the whole world of personal development, and I think that had a big impact on me as well.
Yeah, I love that saying. I love what you just said. You can't tell me I can't sell a home today.
Right.
Love that mindset, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the so scaling up a buyer's business. This is something I'm really curious about. So there's a lot of buyers that or I should say agents that work with buyers that they would love to just keep working with buyers. They don't necessarily want to become the top listing agent. They don't want to, that's just, that business model is not what they're looking to build. So if someone wanted to stay on the buyer side, how far theoretically can they scale themselves so that they're just focusing on the highest value activities and outsourcing everything else to somebody on their team?
Yeah, and the challenge is, I mean, I don't know that that's an entirely sustainable business model, because the best buyers come off yard sign calls. So if I would tell somebody, if they truly want to work with buyers, just join a really kick-ass team and become a buyer's agent, because you need the leverage of your listings to get the high-quality buyer leads. And internet buyers are, I got to imagine they're more of a grind today than they were, 7 years ago. When I was getting into it, but it's just about doing the activity. I mean, you could open houses. We're crushing open houses right now. Right. You don't need listings to do open houses. You go to any agent in your office that isn't proactively holding their listings open, and you just ask them. So you can hold, and then you put out 50 signs. We do the mega open houses, and one of our agents picked up 12 quality buyers at one open house and 2 sellers last weekend. Yeah,
no
so.
kidding.
And he was a listing agent on the home. He's sort of one of our dual. We run a specialist model, but he's kind of in both worlds a little bit. And he sold his listing. He picked up 2 sellers. He got contact information for 12 buyers, and 4 here he's actively working with less than a couple weeks later.
So what were his scripts for that? Did he use anything specific, or is he just naturally gifted? I mean,
we definitely have a system for open houses. He is definitely a very good communicator, like really good at building rapport and making people feel comfortable. And nothing that I taught him. I mean, he sort of brought those skills to the team, but just really good at putting people at ease and showing his expertise and building rapport. And I got to believe, and just the confidence of he had like 20 people in the home the whole time he was there, and so he knew he had something that was that the market wanted, and he sold it, so it didn't even matter.
Nice. All right. So Lars, how do you teach buyer agents to time block their time so that they're actually the most productive?
Yeah, it's the challenge, and what I learned is that if I could control my mornings, when I was in production, that if I could control, just harness that 8 to 11, 8 to 9 is kind of the best time to connect with people on the phone, and just create as much new business as possible in those first 3 hours of the day. If you do that, you can go do whatever you need to do after 11 because you're going to be so busy. So you got to shoot for 2 90-minute focused prospecting and follow-up sessions every day. And just do them back to back. It's that book, Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. If you have a frog to eat, you better do it in the early part of the day. If you have 2 frogs to eat, you should eat the biggest one first. Yeah. So prospecting is the biggest frog, and then follow up is that second biggest frog. And just eat them early in the day, and just get it over with. And just by doing that and committing to that, and shutting everything else out, you're going to be successful. And that's the only way to do it. There is no other way to do it.
You're right. You talk about 2 90-minute sessions. What have you found to be the best times for that?
Right in the morning, back to back.
Really?
Yeah. The data tells you 8 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 5 p.m. but we find that agents are so sideways in the afternoon that committing to that later time block is just difficult. So the third best time block is 9 to 10 a.m. So if they could just do 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11 back to back, and just really focus on just the dialing part of it, not sending emails, not setting up e-alerts for buyer prospects, just focusing on getting their dials up, their connects up, meaningful conversations, appointments, all that stuff. We track all of that stuff as well.
Have you ever heard of Cytomax or the thing called Muscle Milk people use to work out with? Okay, so Cytomax is the parent company, and Greg and Penny Pickett are the owners of it, and they live on my parents' street. And when they first started that company, they literally started in the garage. They had the power shut off on them all the time because they couldn't make rent. And so my father was talking to Greg Pickett, who's I think he's sold his company for like $400 or $500 million. So good for him. Kudos. He had like a new Bentley every week. It's fucking ridiculous. Really, you need one for Wednesday too, fools? Good lord. But Greg said something very unique to the Grand Master Terry, the T Diddy, and he said, Terry asked him, Greg, how did you get to where you are? And Greg said this: it's very simple, Terry. What I did is when I started out, and now all my salespeople from 9 until 12. I don't care if the fucking world is burning to the ground. If your wife is giving birth, if there is an earthquake and a massive fire and a tsunami heading your way, your ass is going to be on the freaking phone and you're going to be dialing for outbound business.
Yep.
And that is how he built it in such a short amount of time. And you're so right on. No matter what, you time block that in, no matter what happens, and you get the calls done. It's just as important as a listing appointment. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, even more important.
Thank you.
I mean, it's a third of your day. So I mean, a true salesperson, they're not going to work. They'll probably work a 50-hour work week, and we're just asking for 15 hours of focused new business development activities. And then we still do note cards, we still do social posts, we still do SOI connects, we still do all those things, and we track all those things. But just the picking up the phone is the only way to do it.
It truly, truly is. By the way, total side subject, have you guys started playing with Facebook Live yet? And with your agents talking to their sphere of influences?
No.
Oh, dude, you've got to do this. It is so much fun, and the people on the other end love it. It's super cool. We'll talk offline about that, but I'll hook you up with that and kind of what I'm doing with it. It's rock star.
Love it.
Cool. Well, let's get into the seller side a little bit, shall we?
Yeah.
So let's talk about how to kind of get yourself prepped to scale up your seller side. So obviously we talked about the time blocking. It's really the same. It's your lead generating activities from 8 to 11, and then your follow-up, and then all of your social posts and all this stuff taking place. So we know that kind of what the time blocking is. That's the same for both the buyer and seller side. So what are some of the other really high-value activities that agents should be focused on if they're looking to make themselves into a top listing agent?
My approach, like marketing to me is, I don't think there's any other a more highly leveraged activity than marketing, and designing an expired piece or a FSBO piece, or putting a FSBO system into your CRM, or like all of that stuff. To me, that's how I built my listing inventory initially. And it was the same thing. I just had the marketing system running. The leads would come in. Most of those were inbound, so I just had a different approach on the listing side. I never was much of like smile and dial to expireds. Did some for FSBOs because FSBOs were a little friendlier, but I was always good at creating direct response pieces to have folks call me. And there came a point where it wasn't as effective as the market recovered a little bit. I think luckily at the time, I remember it was me and just an assistant. And I think I had a few buyer agents, and I got my listing inventory up to 92 listings without like a listing manager. But it was mostly because a lot of them didn't sell, and I wasn't pricing them right. And I was just learning how to be like, yeah, sure, I'll take your listing. Sure. And just learning, just with the same sort of fierce, just giving up buyers 100%, committing not to working with any buyers, and then just throwing myself in the listing side and just mastering that side and pricing and, you know, learning those tough lessons about like how painful is it to take an overpriced listing and then try to beat your seller down, having lost their trust and faith and all that. And then it was ugly from a customer service standpoint because I didn't have the benefit of my experience in the systems that I offer in B School now. I was just figuring it out. I mean, I'd show up to closings. Two things that I'm not proud of, which I don't recommend: having a listing expire 6 months in without making one call to your seller, you know, because you have too many listings. Yeah, right. Or even worse, going into a closing room and not knowing which side of the table is yours. I did that twice. And I use these stories now. Like, this is not the way to do it. Like, the value I give to my clients, my coaching clients, is that, you know, there are just certain things you don't want to do, and, you know, the weekly seller calls are critical, and you know, knowing what your clients look like is really important as well.
Physical appearance is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's talk about the transition from the buy to the sell side and see if we can help some people out with that. So obviously there's a lot of people that will become successful at combining both. They'll work with both buyers and sellers. So what is the struggle, or what's that obstacle that keeps them from just flipping the switch and turning off the buyers, hiring, like, get a buyer's, whatever they need to do to get a buyer's agent at the door to handle them? Like, what's that transition? What should it look like? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's a critical shift, and I think it's just a mindset thing. Most folks think that if they give up buyers, a big part of their business is going to go away, when it's just a lower value activity compared to sellers. But it really does come down to a commitment. Like, by this date, I'm not going to work with buyers. The reason why you can't work with buyers and have any kind of normalcy in your life is because buyers just, no matter what, they want to go out evenings and weekends.
They're neurotic.
Yeah, and if you're doing, especially in a seller's market, I mean, working with buyers now is even harder because, you know, you got multiple offers, you're writing 5 contracts to get 1 accepted, at least in our market. So it's a challenge, really a challenge working with buyers if you have a family, if you have children, and you really want to sort of be present and be there with them. So that was the commitment for me. That just happened. I just, like, I've got to get out of working with buyers, and I've always been good at delegating, and, like, you're a solid 80% of what I can do, and I'm fine with that. I'm not going to micromanage you. My first buyer agent hire and my first admin are still with me.
Nice.
In the beginning, I mean, it was just, you know, we were working Boomtown. I was working Boomtown alone for a year. Wow. And I would just call those leads whenever they came in. I was sneaking out of bed at night, and just, I wouldn't tell my wife that I got a lead, but I would call them. And then Chris came on, and he's still with me, and I would cherry pick the ones that were higher price points, give him everything else, and we were just running, gunning, and making it happen. But it's just more of a mental commitment than anything else. That buyers are just a challenge if you want to have that normalcy. And any amount of time freedom. The thing that we move toward in B School is time and money freedom. And so, and time, you know, being able to choose when you're meeting with your clients and just having guidelines around that, it's way easier when you're not working with buyers. Yeah, go ahead.
Question for you, Lars. I like what you teach in your school. Without any training, I just got fed up by being beaten like a redheaded stepchild, you know, by my buyers, and I decided to just lay the law down one day. I said, you know what? No, I'm not meeting you at this time. No, go piss off. I'm not going to show you anything this weekend. And so I did this. I took a deep breath. I'm like, I don't work on the weekends. And I work my tail off during the week, but if you want to see something, please be free and go see it. You know, and I've never lost a client doing that because it took client control. And like you said, you're running your business like a business, and you want time and money freedom, right? Is that what you're saying, time and money?
For sure,
right?
Yep.
And that's what I took. I took my time back, and once you took control, I took control of it, like you teach your folks. It empowers you, and then your clients see you as someone who is an authority figure because you're running your business like a business, not like someone's bitch who's getting kicked all over the field. And I have a client right now like yours. I mean, she's neurotic, man. She wants to go see houses on Easter Sunday. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But yet our team's going to step up and do it. But yeah, it's time and money, man. It is so critical to have that in your life.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing is that you have to have people on your team that are willing to do it.
Yeah.
And and that's just the role of a buyer agent. It's a challenging role, but there are folks out there that are well suited for that role, and they're truly sort of an expert and a specialist in that role, and they enjoy the process of working with buyers. So that just wasn't me.
And we take our hat off to them and thank them profusely.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't live without my buyer agents.
No. You would committed homicide like I have done multiple times on my clients. Just like.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to sum up, so when you're moving from the buy side to the list side, or at least trying to get yourself exclusively on the list side, so obviously you should already have your 3-hour kind of prospecting block in the morning. That should already be installed, right? So you're taking listings that should be on autopilot. Then the next thing you do is you basically shut off the buyers. Say I'm gonna bring on buyers agents, set up some sort of systems and training, get them up and running, and then the next thing is you start getting your marketing system up and running. So you're bringing in more listing lead generation, right?
Yeah, the marketing system. So I was becoming a marketer while I was learning to be a buyer agent. So those were happening simultaneously. So I was building up the listing lead gen while I was still sort of mastering working with buyers and hiring somebody, just fumbling through all of that, and then by the time I committed, my first step getting out of buyers was to have my buyer agents, the 2 or 3 at the time, be my showing agents on my buyers. So I'd do the consult and I'd say, okay, I've got a few showing agents. They'll show property to you. When you find a property you like, I'll come in and negotiate the offer. So I did that probably for a year, and then I just made the commitment that I'm giving up buyers altogether. And by that time, the listing lead flow was coming in more consistently, so I can focus 100% on that side.
Well, yeah, and you had a system for bringing in buyers. You knew exactly how to train your buyer agents, how to do the consult exactly like you did it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Very interesting. Last show, Matt and I were talking about buyers agents. Can you break down what you pay them and how that works in your marketplace? And then again, who would you recommend to be a showing agent? I'm sorry, a showing agent for you.
Yeah. So showing agents, how that works?
Yes, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I mean, we keep it simple on our team. We don't run a showing agent model, so to speak. But we have showing agents available to our buyer agents, and we just have our buyer agents pay the showing agent directly. And so
is it an hourly thing? Is it a flat fee?
It's simply $20 an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Nice. So we stay out of it 100%. And the showing agents attend meetings, but they're just doing their own thing. So I don't run a full-on, account execs that are only doing, like, my buyer agents will show. They just have flexibility around showing homes because we'll have a showing agent available. And so it gives them an evening or two off a week. It'll give them a little bit of downtime on the weekends, or if they have multiple clients on the weekends, especially in a hot market, they can't be everywhere all the time. So, and that's where I get stuck a little bit when people say that I'm running the ISA model or I'm running the showing agent model, or it's just we have all these tools, we run all the tools, but we don't go all into one tool.
Your showing agents are licensed, right? It's not some Joe off the street.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. I guess people have asked me that. Do they have to be licensed? I'm like, yeah, they have to be licensed. I just wanted to hear it from you that was the same thing.
And sometimes even our newer agents will, same way that my agents did for me back in the day, our newer agents will be able to do showing agent work for my more experienced, more busy agents.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Yeah, so we just run it pretty loose, and we just know that new agents need experience showing homes anyway. If they have the personality, there's not any rocket science going on there. That's a $20 all day long activity.
Yeah, as long as you don't kick them in the shins and call their mama fat, it's going to be a pleasant experience for the buyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Oh, that's funny. All right, so let's dig into the real deal scaling. This is the part that I'm probably the most fascinated and passionate about when it comes to real estate team building. So let's dig into the transition from being a top listing agent, being the rainmaker, and having all these buyer agents around you, and then turning that into a real business that you can start to exit the listing side. And there's a couple of different models. There's the KW model of replacing yourself with a listing partner. So I'm curious, Lars, what your perspective is on that. You've seen a lot of teams. You work with a lot of guys that are building teams, and I'm sure they got a lot of different models and ways of trying to replace themselves on the listing side. So what have you seen work, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, so it's easy to see say where I've seen it fail. I've seen it fail. I've seen guys and gals have to go back into their business to list homes when they didn't truly set up a repeatable system. So the one thing I knew when I got the buyer agent, the buyer side was running okay. I was listing homes and I was getting really good at that. But I knew that I had to make it where anyone could come in and list the homes. So that we had a process, a pre-listing process that gave us authority going into the appointment. We had the same thing. This is what I do when I get to the home. I have a 7-step process that I follow from knocking on the door all the way to signing paperwork. And then a process for working those sellers once we get them under contract. And then checklists around getting them active on the market. And all of that is just, it's checklist driven. It's very process and systems driven. So you've got to put that in place, and it could take 6 to 12 months to do that. You know, some agents their team is big enough and they just want to get the heck out of production, but not having the systems in place is where it tends to fail. So that's where my focus was. I had to hire, I go from 1 to 2 admin, so I had to hire a listing manager to sort of handle some of the, just getting properties on market and handling the regular sort of inquiries. And then it was easy for me. I hired the wrong listing agent to start. So some of this is by experience. I let him go on 105 listing appointments, and I think he only listed, I was so happy to be out of it that I wasn't tracking anything at the time. But I went back and tracked it. I'm like, we don't have a lot of listing business right now, and he only listed like 30 out of 105. And so, yeah, so I had to go back in and sort of rework the system. Brought in a second listing specialist who ended up being a true replacement for me. And she, remember her, she was only with me for 2 years, but she sold like 65 and then like 77 homes, and had pretty good percentages. And she would get, you know, fees and higher commissions and all that stuff. And we went to upfront fees at one point, and she did really well with that. She was really aggressive.
Yeah, she's still with you, right?
That one is not still with me. She, I think the pace of it for her was just not. It's funny. I looked up each of these, my first 2 listing agent hires, who she sold like 77 homes with me in her last year, and I think she has like 9 sales in the last 12 months or something. So,
whoops.
Because we generate, you know, the large majority of the appointments that our agents go on, so that's good for them as well as us. Because even though we love our agents, we're not agent dependent. You know,
Right.
Somebody moves out of market, or they just get fed up with the pace that they're working or whatever. You know, it sucks. It's sad, but you know, we're going to lose agents from time to time.
You are. It's the churn of the business. Again, it's like you said, hire the right person, someone that's going to stick with you, not going to learn from you and then ditch you and then be your competition. But you can't stop that. I mean, there's no magic pill for that. But I want to take a quick step back here. I know that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is kind of your secret sauce and what you coach and get, you know, you get paid for, and rightly so. I know you have a 7-step process to initially get those people onboarded. Are there a couple of things that you would be willing to share that people could, you know, kind of those tidbits, those tantalizing bits of information? They're like, oh, damn, this guy's onto something. I want to hire him. I want to know more about this guy. Is there anything you could share with our viewers? And
in terms of like buyer agent training, or the listing process, or?
Yeah, kind of like the buyer agents. I'm assuming kind of like that 7-step process. If there's like 2 or 3 you could shed light on a little bit, or if you want to, we could do all 7.
The 7-step was your listing presentation essentially, right?
That was just a listing system, right? So it's everything from what you say on the phone, you know, in terms of like a pre meeting interview. Mm-hmm. That's one. It's sending out the right pre-list packet is like number 2. 3 is what you do when you get in the door, and how that first 10 to 15 minutes, like specifically how you go about building rapport and connecting with the client. 4 is 30,000 to 10,000 foot view of the market, and kind of priming them for just building authority and expertise. 5 is your listing presentation, just having a very concise, very results-driven listing presentation. 6 is just the pricing discussion. And we run a very specific pricing tool it's 4 ways to value homes, and we kind of compare that against the average agent using just CMA. And then 7 is just kind of listing paperwork, asking for referrals, and getting the home on the market. So that's the system. There's nothing rocket science about it, but we have checklists behind every one of those things to make sure that it's done the same way every time.
I love it. What I've found, Lars, and I know that you know this as well, and Matt, you've seen this on the people you work with. When we started a number of years ago to drop off pre-listing packets, a little pamphlet like I've shown on the show many times about who our team is, maybe a computer-generated report because you don't know the inside, or a letter and all the rest of that goodness. It is powerful, powerful stuff, but people overlook it all the time because they're just going to get to know me when I show up at the front door. No. I mean, they still are talking to people all over the place and getting that information in their hands so they can essentially stalk you in the most positive way that word can ever be used.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It helps us get listing after listing after listing.
Yeah, and we're adding, one of our things that we sort of promote a no-pressure sale, like marketing presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
Which it's because we're not closers. Like I've just never been a hardcore closer type person, but we're going to start adding. There's 2 lead behinds that I'm actually building right now. A test, like we have hundreds of testimonials from happy clients on like probably 6 or 7 different online portals, and just written testimonials. I mean, hundreds, like a stack of. We're actually going to leave a book of testimonials with people that we don't sign. And also, we're going to leave like awesome. a top 10 questions to ask agents before you hire them, like the right questions, and explain the questions why, and say, listen, if you don't call us back, you have to promise me that you ask the agent you hire these questions, and here are the questions, and here are our answers. That's awesome. It's really results driven. I mean, this thing is probably the most powerful thing that I've seen. And I'm still finalizing it right now, but I highly recommend, if you're not getting them signed, to leave those 2 things behind.
It's kind of like a slap in the face. It's like, oh, you wanted to work with Matt Johnson? Oh, that's such a bummer. Dan Kennedy style, this thick, size 30 print, and just plop. Yeah. You're an idiot.
And and it shows all of our stats. It shows that we're 6.5% ahead of the market on pricing here. Half the time our homes are on the market. 94% of our listings sold last year versus 42% our market average. Wow. Like some really, the fact that we sell homes, enough income's generated to properly market and advertise. We spend over $40,000 a month on marketing and advertising. So it really does make them look stupid if they choose somebody else.
No, it really does, and that's awesome. I love what you guys are doing. You're going in with the same mindset that we go in on our team. You're not commission-minded, you're client-minded, and people will sniff that out that quickly.
Yeah,
and
sure.
They love the no-pressure sale because they're so ready for us to pounce on them.
Yep.
You're like, sign the listing contractors.
But you have to have your marketing together, though. That's the secret to that, and that's what most agents lack, is they don't have any of that infrastructure going in. So all they have is their sales ability, and if it fails them in that moment, they're done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's so true.
All right. So in the few minutes that we have left, we don't want to keep you too long. We got about 5 minutes before we need to wrap it up. So this is a question I've always wanted to ask you, Lars, is how do you, obviously clarity is a huge issue for most agents. They just simply don't know where to start, and they don't know how a business is really built and what the component parts of a business are. And you mentioned that earlier. So, marketing, sales, operation, finance. So how do you decide in your business, and maybe you can take me back to where you're the process of building your business, but how do you look at, okay, what's the next step, and get clarity on what is the next thing, what is the next system that I need to install in my business, and then how do you start that project to install that system?
Yeah. Probably 2 things come to mind. So we are implementing, and we've been doing this for years, a book called Traction. Gino Wickman, Traction. So there's a couple parts of that book that are really helpful, even if you're early on in the journey. There's the something called an accountability chart, and that's just kind of setting up your business functionally, so you can kind of see where you're hurting or not hurting. That's the marketing, sales, operations, and finance. And then what was the other part? So the questions around systems and how to build out the right systems.
So Traction gives you kind of an overview of this is what the ideal business looks like. These are the components of it. Yeah. And then it's a matter of figuring out what's the next project and how you install that.
And then in B School, I mean, it really is sort of the REBS drivers, we call them, are having a vision, then it's sales, then it's marketing, sales, operations, finance, and leadership. And so we kind of build out and train, and there's 30 tools that we have available. and each of the tools is kind of like a system, and it just goes from left to right. We kind of introductory tools, and then we build out 5 layers deep in each of those 6 key drivers. And it's building obviously you've got to have business coming in. So I can't imagine buyers not using the internet. So for someone that's early in the journey, they've got to have buyer internet leads and time block and get good at talking to those leads, and then they've got to have a database, have some bit of technology to be able to work people that already know, like, and trust them. Those 2 things can take you to 50 to 75 deals. I mean, if you just focus on those 2 things, and you're going to get listings, and then having the proper yard marketing in place, and then adding some direct response marketing, you can go to 100, 150 deals. It was harder for me to get to 100 deals than it was to pass 400 deals. So that's sort of the blessing, is that it takes a lot of effort to get the momentum going, and once you get it going, it didn't take much for me to go from 120 to 180, 250, 320, 450, and we'll do more than 500 sides this year. So it's just it's a realization, and this is I actually got certified as an E-Myth business coach, and everything. People drive the systems, and your business is a reflection of you, but it really is a systems approach to everything. So how do I hire somebody? What's the system? Let me pull out the system for that. How do I follow up with buyer internet leads? How do I follow up with the yard sign calls? How do I follow up with my sphere and how that looks? And it's just a little checklist for everything. I just finished a book called Checklist Manifesto.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've been meaning to read that.
Yeah, it just like the last chapter was about business, and it was this doctor that kind of took the airline industry's sort of methodology for using checklists into hospitals, where there was just a lot of the same thing happening that wasn't good, and just fixing things about procedures and surgeries. And really cool book, and it makes me think that there's even another level. In businesses, if you want to deliver the same world-class service over and over, it's just a series of checklists in your business, and it's nothing more. If you get the checklist in place, then your people can really just be extraordinary, because they don't have to kind of just keep everything in their mind.
Yeah, that's true. Matt, I think you're reading Matt's mind right now. Matt's like, this is the greatest news I've ever heard in my life. But as a guy who just got off a plane, who had, we had some turbulence up in the air yesterday, I'm very thankful for checklists.
Yeah, for sure.
So good that plane was going to stay up in the air.
The cool thing about turbulence, I don't know where I heard this. It's like, if you look at any plane that's crashed for turbulence, you won't find any plane that's ever crashed for turbulence.
Really?
Yeah, so as turbulence is going on, realizing that it's never going to crash, you can just enjoy it.
Oh, well, then I'll sit back and have a beer on the flight home and be like, screw you, turbulence.
I'm trying to remember that on the next Southwest trip from like Houston to Dallas, where you just go bloop, and then it's just, that's the worst flight ever.
Air pocket just pop, drops down. You're like,
Yeah, so we will link to both of those resources. So Traction by Gino Wickman, and then the Checklist Manifesto. That looks really good. There's a couple more resources that are along the same line. So in The Invisible Organization by Mitch Russo, he's the former CEO of Chet Holmes International. That is another great book along those same lines. And then there's a book called Scale, which looks like it's along the lines of Traction. I've been digging into those. And
scaling up?
No, although that's another very good one, Vern Harnish. No, Scale is, there's 2 authors. I think one of them, there are 2 Jeffs, Jeff Hoffman and Jeff something else. So that like reading that book, Scale, was like talking to Frank, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Like it was like somebody took his entire brain and put it into a book. It was fantastic.
Wow.
The Invisible Organization. I'm going to write this down. It's cool.
So yeah, there's so Mitch Russo, the guy that wrote that book, said something to the effect of every time he does something, he always asks himself, how can I use this to save myself time tomorrow? So if I have to do something more than once, I'm creating a system for it. Yeah. That's something I've been trying to do myself in my business, and of course Greg's allergic to it, but behind the scenes, Real Estate Uncensored does it, whether you like it or not, Greg.
Yep. And I'm truly thankful for that, because otherwise we'd be foobarred.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's funny, real estate agents don't have that gene in them to create systems to slow down. I mean, it's all sort of high I, hard charging, DI personalities, and I was blessed to have a DC personality, so I definitely have that analytical side, engineering undergrad.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, so it's but if you don't have it, you got to copy someone else's stuff.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about real estate. Copy to success.
For sure. Swiping the point.
All right, so Lars, how do people get in touch with you and learn more about the B School?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really if any of this sort of hit a chord and you're looking to go, kind of add transactions but also add leverage, get time and money freedom, just grab a call with us. Go to REBS, so it stands for Real Estate B School, REBSstrategysession.com.
Very cool.
That's good stuff.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you very, very much. This was awesome. Exactly
this was
what
cool.
I had in mind.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Hey,
all right.
We're so glad to have you on, man. You brought so much value today. I mean, there's going to be a lot of folks that are listening right now. Like, I got off a call with Jose and his wife Veronica. Shout out to you guys out of Long Beach, dude. They would be perfect for you, man. I'll get them in touch with you. I think that the way what you teach is right up their alley, man.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Referrals are appreciated for sure.
Yeah.
Dude.
Awesome, guys.
They'll come your way.
That's
awesome.
right. Well, we will wrap this one up. So we've got a great agent coming up on Monday. We're speaking with Susan Heller out of Naples, Florida. We've got all kinds of stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks, including Sarah Johnston out of Canada, who's going to talk to us about how she built an Instagram following of over 5,000. So we've got a ton of stuff. So until then, everybody have a nice weekend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, guys. Thank you. We love you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.